at the 118th District Courthouse where Joel Rojo was just sentenced, and attorney Gloria Allred is in town from Los Angeles representing victims, and they are about to make a statement.
Good afternoon. I'm attorney Gloria Allred, and I'm here with Linda, who is the parent of one of the victims who was convicted in this case. I'm supporting one of the victims, and there was a charge, and former Detective Rojo was convicted of the charge involving the victim, and that's Linda's daughter. And so today I'm here in Big Spring, Texas to support the victims at the sentencing in the case of State versus Rojo. And that involves former police detective Joel Rojo. And I was asked to attend by Linda, who is the mother of one of the minor victims in the case. Linda had contacted the police in Big Springs to ask that they investigate what she believed to have been a sexual crime against her then 14-year-old daughter. Big Spring Police Detective Joel Rojo was assigned to investigate the case. Linda trusted him to act professionally in the course of his investigation and to uphold what she had every right to believe would be the high standards of law enforcement as they investigated any crime, but in particular, any allegation of a crime against a child. Unfortunately, however, Linda was shocked to learn later that Detective Rojo had betrayed her trust and the trust of the community of Big Spring. Detective Rojo used and abused his position as a detective to take advantage of a vulnerable child victim. Linda's daughter had been taught to trust, respect, and obey the police. Detective Rojo took advantage of that trust and used the pretext of investigating an alleged sex crime against the child in order to sexually exploit and abuse Linda's daughter. A jury convicted him of a crime against the child and crimes involving sexual abuse against 2 other child victims as well. He was convicted of indecency with a child by sexual contact, sexual performance by a child, indecency with a child by exposure, and attempted indecency with a child by exposure. Given the gravity and the severity of the crimes against children, Linda and her daughter wanted Detective Rojo to receive the maximum sentence possible under the law. Detective Rojo has not only brought shame on himself, but in addition he has disgraced others in law enforcement who work hard every day to earn the respect and uphold the high standards of law enforcement. Further, he has hurt Linda's child and destroyed the trust that she had in him, all law enforcement, and in other adults who are in positions of authority. Detective Rojo was a sexual predator, and he used his uniform, his badge, and his position to hurt and sexually exploit children. He acted under color of law, not to protect and serve, but to sexually abuse and harm a child. The only interest that he served was his own. And today he was forced to face the consequences of his betrayal of this child and the other victims that he hurt. As a lawyer, I've been supporting and representing victims of child sexual abuse for 41 years. There can be no excuse or justification for such crimes against children. I'm honored to have been asked to come to Big Spring today to support this brave mother and her very brave daughter. Linda is dedicated to supporting and to protecting children, not only her own daughter, but the children of others as well. I look forward to continuing to support them, along with my co-counsel, Texas Attorney Morgan Stewart, in their efforts to ensure that what happened to Linda's daughter never happens again, and that those who are responsible be held accountable for their failure to protect children. And Linda has a few words, and I know it's very difficult for her.
I'd rather not take no questions, and I just would like to be short and sweet with you because I'm
That's
kind of
fine.
emotional right now. I appreciate Gloria and everybody for supporting us. We are very happy with the verdict. This is part of one step in the closure. And all I ask you to do is just pray for these girls and pray for the victims, because they got a long way to go. And we need your support. And if you'll respect their privacy too, I'd appreciate it too.
And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. You know, if there were 3 victims who were named as victims in this particular criminal case, we don't know if there are others out there who may also be victims of Detective Rojo or not. It may be that others are living in fear of coming forward. They should know that they can speak with private attorneys like myself, Mr. Stewart, or attorneys in Big Spring or elsewhere in Texas. They can speak confidentially. It doesn't have to be a criminal case, and they can be informed of what their legal rights are, even if there is no criminal case, and the benefits and risks of all of their choices and options, and then they can make an informed decision as to whether they want to pursue any options or not. That's up to them. But, you know, we're there to support victims, and they should not live in fear. There is not going to be any retaliation. There is only going to be support for these victims. And we're here to be sure that they are supported.
And moving forward with this, he's already been sentenced, of course. Do you see any more lawsuits, civil lawsuits, or anything else coming in the works?
Well, you know, I will have to see. We'll have to see whether there's going to be a lawsuit or not. That's going to be up to Linda and her daughter. But the focus today is on this perpetrator, this particular sexual predator who has hurt so many people. And to see him walked out of the courtroom to serve a maximum term in prison that's justice, but there still needs to be more justice. That's justice for the people of Texas. We want to be sure that any victim knows that she also has ways to achieve justice.
Why did you feel it was so important for you to personally be here in Big Spring?
I've always been concerned about crimes against children. And my concern is heightened when those who they look to protect them betray their trust and hurt them. I mean, this is horrible. This is life-changing for these victims. It's devastating. For many victims who are minors, it's hard enough for them to talk to law enforcement about any crime involving, you know, sex or sex abuse that has been inflicted on them. And when they find the courage to report that crime and overcome their embarrassment and stop trying to blame themselves, and of course, predators always like children to blame themselves. When they finally overcome their fear and have the courage to report, then to be exploited sexually by the law enforcement officer who is there to investigate the sexual abuse crime which they're reporting it's just something that should never happen again. This is the ultimate betrayal of trust. I mean, if the community can't trust police detectives charged with investigating sex crimes against minors, who can they trust? I'm sure that there are many in the police department who are ashamed of what happened. And most would never, ever commit such crimes. But frankly, one is one too many. And this is a teaching moment. That if anyone else is contemplating that, whether it's Big Springs Police Department, any other police department in Texas, sheriffs, anywhere in the country, law enforcement, There are going to be serious consequences. They will pay the price. Victims are going to pay a price. We want the price to be even greater for the perpetrator of crimes against children of a sexual nature. He's going to have a long time in prison to think about this.
What is that price?
It's going to be a heavy price. He's going to be in prison. And he needs to come to terms with what he has done. It was indicated, I believe, by the district attorney today that that he believes that former Detective Rojo has not shown remorse for what he did.
Ms. Allred, could you explain to those who aren't familiar with the sentence